So, I got the worst haircut of my life yesterday. Then again, I just woke up, so I look like Guile from Street Fighter, kind of. So, what was I going to say? A little out of tune. The saddest of all chords. All right. I was going to talk about, let's revisit hammer-ons. Hammer-ons and pull-offs, but really hammer-ons. This is really about hammer-ons. Probably a very short video. I'll give 2 insights that I got from, well, it's really one insight, but it's been reinforced multiple times. Back in the day, in my 20s, so I don't want to overstate this. I started too late to compete, but I was doing boxing in my 20s and was totally hooked. This guy Ron Browning was my coach, and I got to train against some of the Dallas Golden Gloves people, and that was like astonishing. You know, I mean, you're hitting a thing that, I mean, you're punching at a person that you cannot hit. I mean, that person is just not there by the time you hit their glove. They're over on your side and stuff. They're constantly moving. It was very eye-opening, the difference between the way a boxer would fight and like a street fight. But one of the things about getting your power together, and I see the same thing with baseball players, what are some other examples? I don't know, baseball is a great other example, which is, you know, force is mass times acceleration, right? It's the amount of your body that you can get moving as fast as you can get moving, but it's also about how quickly you it's about hitting something and not pushing it, right? So the idea, like if you're hitting the heavy bag, is you're bringing your entire body around, right? You're twisting your entire body, and this is just this weightless appendage that you're dragging behind it, just like a baseball bat, right? You see them, they twist their body, and the bat comes around last, right? Same thing with a hook. A good hook is just this appendage that's coming around, and it hits last, right? And so but your body is twisting. But the idea is that you transfer all of the speed and the weight into the bag in a nanosecond. You need to, all the contact that you're going to make is within just this first millisecond. There's no hitting it and then pushing it, right? It's not about how hard you exert force after you've already made contact. It's about the initial moment of contact, and that's all that matters. That's the only thing that matters to how hard you're going to hit the bag or a dude, right? Baseball, you know, oh, by the way, yeah, when you make contact with the bag like that, it makes this snap sound that the whole gym can hear, right? So it's pow, pow. You can hear the moment that you can hear someone transferring a ton of force into the bag in a nanosecond, because the bag makes this resonating crack sound, right? The same as a baseball player hitting the absolute crap out of the ball, right? You can hear it happen, right? That's that same idea. It's transferring all of the force from the mass times acceleration into the ball in a nanosecond, and you're literally hearing the ball and the bat make a sound that's so loud that an entire stadium can hear it, right? And it's freaking awesome, right? The reason I bring this up, hammer-ons. Back in the day, I was taking lessons from a dude named Sam Walker. This was when I was at UNT, University of North Texas, the jazz program there. When I got to UNT, First of all, I sucked at jazz. I now kind of suck at jazz. So it's a great progress for me. At the time, I definitely sucked. I was taken from Sam Walker, who does not suck at jazz. Sam Walker is a local Dallas guitar legend and great jazz player. And put up with me too much. So probably more than he had to. So, lovely guy. But he told me this story. So another thing, when I got to UNT, the entire program was in the shadow of Tim Miller. I don't know if you've heard Tim Miller. He's in the Northeast now. Sorry, I got this notification that won't go away. Tim Miller is a brilliant player, right? And apparently he was brilliant when he got to UNT to begin with. When he was right out of high school, he was brilliant and already had this fully evolved style. I remember having seen him in the Guitar for the Practicing Musician or Guitar World or whatever magazine, the little local heroes thing, or where people would send in their clip. And I remember having seen him in that, and they were talking about how he's kind of like Matheny and Holdsworth, and blah blah blah. Anyway, when I got there to UNT, everybody, all they could talk about Tim Miller, and it was like, in fact, my friend, I'll tell this story. My friend Eric Nicholson, who's in Midlake. So Midlake, if you ever see the Head Home video, the piano player, and right at the beginning, that's Eric. One of my oldest friends, literally the second dude I became friends with when I moved to UNT. Eric told me the story because I remember, like how good was Tim Miller, because everybody, was always on about him, and Eric was like, let me put it this way. One year, Tim was playing at this coffee shop. It was like in August, and all the new students had just gotten there, right? And he said one of the new students from some town, wherever, had just gotten to Denton, had heard about Tim Miller, went to see Tim Miller play at this coffee shop, and started crying. Not happy crying because it was so beautiful, but because he had just realized that compared to Tim Miller, he was nothing, right? That's how good Tim Miller was, and to see someone so fully evolved already in his style, was just too much for this guy, So anyway, Tim Miller was this legend. Anyway, Sam Walker and I are doing a lesson. Sam tells me this story. It's like Tim used to practice his hammer-ons where he would do pick notes, and he would make sure the pick notes were quieter than the hammer-ons. He wasn't going for that's where I'll get back to the boxing analogy soon. He wasn't going for hammer-ons that were the same volume even as his pick notes. He was going for making sure his pick notes were quieter than his hammer-ons, right? And that was like, what? That's so mind-blowing. I didn't even know that was an option, right? Fast forward to a different story. Back in the day, there was this forum was like a family to about 30 people. It was called Huge Racks Inc. It was mostly people into rack gear and Mike Landau. I was into Mike Landau. I'd never owned any rack gear. But anyway, it was kind of a family. It was the coolest forum ever. I'm still really close friends, and I mean, like, we fight, with the people from there, we're like family. Any one of those dudes could to stay at my house, but among the people who were on that forum, like Steve Stevens would drop by, Luke Uther dropped by, John Suhr was on there all the time. I know he's on the Gear Page. James Tyler was on there. Pete Thorne was on it. Bulb, Misha from Periphery, he was always on there showing us, like when he would show us new riffs that he came up with. What? Mind-blowing. The guy from Imagine Dragons was apparently a lurker and stopped by once and was like, hey, sorry, I mentioned you guys in a Guitar World interview or something, and yada yada. Anyway, it was a very special forum. Very cool. But also cool because of the caliber, not just the caliber of player, but the caliber of builder and an expert, and like literally like a dude, Jason. I mean, like techs, guitar techs to massive acts, right? Like one of the dudes who was Eddie's guitar tech was always on there, right? Anyway, fascinating place. Pete Thorne tells this story once about being at a playing at a NAMM show next to Guthrie, right? It was like the Sir NAMM show, right? And he's talking about, how like nobody wants to follow Guthrie. You're just like, no matter who you are, Guthrie's going to kick the crap out of you, right? He told this story about being being backstage at that, and that Guthrie's just standing there holding his guitar, and you can hear Guthrie warming up. And he said the striking thing about standing next to Guthrie in that moment was you couldn't hear the notes he was playing, hearing the sound of his fingers making contact against the fingerboard. He said it was like 1,000 little concussive sounds that you could hear it. It was loud. It was like pop, 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 pop. You could just hear his fingers hitting the fingerboard. And that he said for him it was this eureka moment of that's hammer-ons. Now you see where I'm going with the boxing analogy, right? Your hammer-ons, the volume of them is based on the sound of a good hammer-on. What comes with it is the sound of that. So if I'm just muting the strings as much as I can, you should hear thump. Like it's also making a tonal noise, but the point is that's the sound of a good hammer-on. Now, it does not come, just like with the boxing thing, it does not come from how hard you push after you get there. You should not push hard after you get there. It's 100% about the first nanosecond. It's how much of your finger is moving. So think of it like this. You're moving from the base of your finger. The base of your finger is throwing your entire finger at it. But you're making just a fast contact and you're staying there, but you're not at all pushing after you get there. There's no push. It's just, you can hold it there, obviously. Obviously. I wish I could get rid of the ringing. Is it? It's maybe it's happening back there, but it's totally the thump. I'm not pushing after I get there. After I get there, it's just I'm making very little contact. And relaxation is the key, right? You're getting this form right, but it's not through tension. There should be no tension in there, right? It's just you're moving as much of your finger. So in other words, from the base, you're moving it to make as fast of contact as you can, not as soon as of contact as you can, right? But you're transferring all of the mass times the mass of your finger plus the acceleration into the string in a nanosecond. It makes something analogous to the ball hitting the bat hitting the ball. Either way, your glove hitting a heavy bag, right? That's the idea. The sound that makes on guitar that's what you should be hearing. Until you're hearing that, your hammer-ons aren't as good as they could be, right? Does that make sense? Mass times acceleration, the mass being as much of your finger as you can get going. In other words, you're doing it from the base, right? And pop. In other words, even though these are very small, we're dealing with very small, a very short amount of time here, but the string is there. Your even on the millisecond level, you're trying to not touch it and then push it, right? You're trying to go all at once. It needs to be pushed into the fingerboard, right? There can't be a this hits ultra slow motion. There can't be a this hits and then 2, 3, 4, whatever milliseconds later, it's all the way against there, right? I know we're dealing with a small number of milliseconds here, but that's the way you should be thinking. Is it's as instantaneous as you can make it. The touching of the string is the pressing down of the string. It all happens at the same time. So that makes sense. You'll know it by the thump sound. Until you have the thump sound, you should work on it, right? And then do the Tim Miller thing. Check out Tim Miller, dude. Yeah, there was this. There was this. Oh, well, there was this album. The only album that he had out besides the 1 O'Clock Lab Band CDs. He was on a couple of those. Was this album called With the Distance, and he seems to keep it out of print. I don't know why that is. My friend James Driscoll is on bass. Killer drummer named Rob F. Sherian is on drums. It's great. I don't know why it's out of print, but I know people with the CD. In fact, I bet I still have the CD. But if you want to check out Tim Miller, there's a song called NYC. I think it's called NYC, or is it called New York? Hold on, let me see. It's one of those. And a woo buddy. No. Oh, it's called New York. It's called New York. Man, killing. Great introduction to Tim Miller. There's even a part like during his solo where it sounds like he might yank the string off the side on accident, maybe, and it sounds so cool. So cool. Yeah. So, all right, hammer-ons, right? There's one other topic about hammer-ons that I want to talk about. Really about hammer-ons and pull-offs in general that I want to talk about. It'll be on a later show. Sorry I haven't been around much. I don't know. I've just felt like a break. Part of the corollary of this being so raw, about me just getting on here without a script, blah, blah, blah. One of the corollaries of its rawness is that, I don't know, I might feel like taking 2 weeks off, and that's that. So, yeah. Word. That's what we say on the streets. I think I've used that similar joke before. So, yes. Trying to think of all the shout outs. Maybe I need to tell Sam Walker that I talked about him today. So, there's so much. There's so many great musicians in this town. Like it would blow your mind. I know Nashville's like that. I'm sure LA's still like that. Yeah, so many killer players here at every instrument. So cool.